Paul is warning the Philippians strongly, repeatedly commanding them to watch out for dogs and evildoers and mutilators of the flesh. But sadly, I have come to see over the years that subtle error creeps in among us. And I read of a survey that was taken among 7,000 young people under the age of 25. And they were asked whether they agreed with a certain statement. The way to be accepted by God is just to be good enough. Sadly, more than 60% of the respondents agreed with that statement. Can you be good enough for God? Can I be good enough for God? Well, as you look at the passage today, you're going to discover that the Apostle Paul gives a CV of what he used to believe gave him the right kind of credentials to be accepted by God. He was an amazing religious man. He was a Hebrew of Hebrews, he says. Had the right kind of heritage. He was an upright and blameless and moral person. And yet Paul, looking back, says all of this is rubbish. Rubbish and means nothing. Useless and doesn't contribute anything towards him being accepted by God. We cannot hope that anything we do, whether it be good or even sacrificial or kind or overly generous, none of these things. In fact, those things lead to attitudes of self-righteousness. And of course, we ought to be repenting from the sins we commit and place our trust in Christ. But this passage teaches us that we should also be repenting of our righteous attitudes, our righteousness, because our righteousness is simply not good enough.
I think our generation is a YouTube generation. YouTube is generating millions and millions of hits every day, people coming and watching videos. And you often find videos with people doing all kinds of crazy stunts. I watched a video this last week about a guy on a super bike doing a wheelie and then doing a somersault on his bike. And obviously that takes so much time and dedication to do those kind of things. And people applaud that. But when we look at the Christian realm, often we find that when Christians are devoted to God, when they're doing things, radical things like fasting and memorizing books of the Bible, those Christians are told, you are going overboard, you need to get a life. Christians ought to be devoting themselves to knowing Christ better. And so don't fall into that trap. Don't think as the world thinks. Give yourself to what is of infinite importance, not just playing a guitar or riding a bike, but knowing Christ better. Paul says, I want to know Christ. And this is quite interesting coming from Paul the Apostle, who's walked a journey with God. He's a missionary, he's planted churches, he's written New Testament books, yet he himself says, I want to know Christ. And that is really the desire, should be the desire of every Christian. And Paul helps us in this passage by telling us how we can know Christ better. And as you meet in your group, you will be unpacking some of those things and asking how you can know Christ better.